everybody, and welcome to the Fortress Comic News, episode 78. I am one of your hosts, Chris, alongside...
Mike, the other host.
He's the other host. Look at him sip. There he goes.
Yeah.
Mike, we got a show today.
No, we do have a show. We have a hell of a show. Not only, last episode I talked about, if you're wondering why I'm so nasally, it's because I caught a cold this weekend. What a terrible time to catch a cold. It's like 95 degrees out. Very uncomfortable, very hot and sweaty. But the show must go on because, Chris, not only are we getting contacted from people to be on the show, we have 2 guests on the show this week. Two! Wow. And they're not in the same book. I know we've done that before. We've had 2 people. It's not separate projects, separate worlds for sure. If you see my background, you're wondering why is there a super jacked Charlie Brown behind me? The main interview for this episode is with a man by the name of Jason Yungbluth. He's the writer of Weapon Brown. He's going to be on towards the end of the show. But Chris was also contacted about another interview for this show. Who else was that, Chris?
Mr. Cullen Bunn.
Oh, returning guest, Cullen Bunn.
Apparently, awesome. I didn't piss him off that much.
Yeah, you never want to talk about Aquaman with Cullen Bunn, but for sure, it's definitely one of the more memorable interviews with him. If he if he came back, right? He's probably like, who is that asshole that brought up Aquaman? Oh yeah, I'll go back on their show. It's the only one he can remember. Yeah, so we'll be talking to him on this episode as well.
Yeah, so we talked back and forth all week, and then kind of a last minute interview popped up, and he's got a really cool project coming up. Plus, we talked a tiny bit about his Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's such a cool dude. The audio for that one, the video for that one didn't come out that great, so it's gonna be audio only, but it'll have some cool graphics for you all. It'll be like,
oh wow, nice graphics. Yeah, I remember we had talked about his Guardians of the Galaxy coming out. It's as Guardians of the Galaxy. Remember the play on words? So
yeah, it's fantastic.
I'm upset I couldn't be part of that interview, but you literally got what? You got an email that said we have to do this interview ASAP, and
it's kind of funny because literally what happened was I got home from grocery shopping and I cleaned the kitchen, did all that fun house adult stuff, and I sit down at my desk and I open my phone and there's an email from 2 minutes ago that said, "Hey, if we can do that interview right now, it's the only time I have available." So I was like, "Okay, I'm at my desk right now, so let's do it."
Awesome.
So the timing couldn't have been better.
Perfect. Yeah, and I had just gotten home from traveling, so awesome. We got a fun, exciting show of interviews for you guys.
And also, I cheated on Mike this week.
Yeah, he did. I was going to mention that. Chris was contacted to do another show this week about comics. I'm not so hurt because they're on the West Coast. I mean, we need our feelers out there everywhere. We need this comic book talk going across the US.
Yes.
Hopefully across the world. So talk about that.
So yeah, the guys at the Super Friends podcast, we talked back and forth about me being on their show and talking about what we do here and kind of cross promotion. And so check them out. I was on their last episode and it was a lot of fun. They're really cool guys. And, been talking back and forth with them since too. And hopefully we'll do more with them in the future. Really cool. Check them out. If you go to our Facebook, facebook.com/FortressComicNews, the link's all up on there right now. And, Twitter, anywhere you find us, a link is up there to find that show. So check them out. They're really cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm not so hurt about it. I listened to it. It was a great episode. He does promote our podcast too. So, there's all publicity is good publicity, right?
Damn straight.
Damn skippy. So let's jump right into it. We got a nice long show today filled with other people you want to hear talk besides us.
Yeah. So let's jump to the Cullen Bunn interview now.
Yeah, so we're going to skip the Cullen Bunn interview. We'll be back on the other side.
Hey everybody, Chris here. Quick interruption of the podcast. Please, if you have any comic needs, any of the books that we talked about today you want to pick up, you have any supplies you need to pick up, go to the link down below in the description of this video and or podcast audio feed. and click on my link for mycomicshop.com. Great service. They deliver everything straight to your home, weekly auctions. They have all the supplies you need, all the weekly books you want, all great stuff. And if you use my link below, you show them that you care about everything we do here at Forge Comic News. So please, if you need anything, remember to click on my link down below. And on to the interview, everybody. Hope you enjoy.
Everybody, welcome back. Today we have Cullen Bunn with us, who is working on a Kickstarter project with Brian Q. Quinn and Walter Flanagan called Metro. Welcome back to the show, Cullen.
Thanks for having me back.
So, Metro, I've heard the pitch from the other guys in their podcast. What's this book to you?
Yeah, Metro is, we've been branding it as a very dark urban fantasy, and that's kind of, what it is. It's the story of this guy named Hunter Murphy, who is who finds himself waking on a slab in the city morgue, and he has no memory of where he came from or who he is. The only reason he knows his name is because of the toe tag that he's wearing. And he has to find out who he is. He has this weird connection to the city around him, a seemingly almost mystical connection. And for something to do with his seeming resurrection has attracted the attention of this group of murderous conspiracy theorists called the Wide-Eyed Three. And they will stop at nothing to capture Hunter and to use him to prove their wild theories. And at the same time, he finds out that he may have been involved in a brutal murder that took place a little while back. So he's really in the middle of several mysteries that are kind of unfolding at once. And it's Metro is a very, it's a comic that can be very rough at times. It's violent. It's got a lot of humor. It's got a lot of heart. But it's definitely an unapologetic book.
Very cool. So I know I've heard from Brian and Walt on the Tom Steve Dave podcast that this was an idea that Quinn's had around for a while. How did you get involved in the project?
So Brian and I became friends a few years back. And that friendship was really based on the fact that we both loved comics. And we talked a lot about comics and also movies and TV shows and all the things that we both enjoyed. And we both found that we had sort of very similar sensibilities in terms of the kind of stories we wanted to tell. So at some point, this was just a couple of years ago, I just asked Brian if he would be interested in collaborating on a comic. I knew that he had aspirations of telling stories and wanted to do comics. So I just asked if he wanted to do one with me as a co-writer. And we started pitching some ideas back and forth. And Metro is a book that he's had in mind for, I think he's been working, he's had it in his head for, 20 years. And it's just never come, for various reasons, hasn't come together. So when he told me about that idea, that was the one I thought deserved to be the first thing we worked on together. And so we started fleshing out the initial idea. He sent me, he had a couple of pages of notes and brainstorming on what he wanted to do with the story. And then we kind of took that and fleshed it out and expanded it and expanded the world. And there you go. We started writing scripts for it, and that's been a couple of years ago now that we've been working on it.
Very cool. So the big question here that I personally know the answer, but I know a lot of people out there are wondering. You have relationships with all different kinds of comic companies. Why Kickstarter?
Initially Kickstarter wasn't our plan. We initially planned on doing this with a comic book company. And we approached Metro as single issues, like a series of single issues. But as we started talking to comic companies about it, first of all, we scared a few of them off right away. I don't know if you've seen the preview pages for Metro, but the first few pages have some scenes that I don't think I think terrified a few publishers. Like, we can't publish this.
Yeah, you start off
and that's a pretty good one. No, but it was a book that some publishers weren't. They just weren't comfortable with the content. And we figure if you weren't comfortable with the content of the first, few pages, you're not going to be comfortable with the rest of the book. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong, nothing wrong with a publisher saying it just doesn't fit our model. Then we had several publishers who absolutely wanted to do the book. But there was a lot of discussion on the changing the story and recalibrating for other media and things like that we just weren't super comfortable with. And if we wanted to, if we decided if we wanted to do this book and do it our way, then we had to, we just had the best thing for us to do at this point was take it to Kickstarter and just publish it ourselves. And Kickstarter is something that I've been wanting to do a lot more of anyway, just to experiment with it and try new projects. I think it's an amazing platform. I don't think it is a replacement for traditional comic book publishers, but not every book and every project is right for a traditional comic book publisher. So this is our chance to do this and to do something, different with it. And when we decided to do Kickstarter, then that's when we decided to do it as just put the whole graphic novel together and do the first, what will essentially be the first arc of the story all in one place.
Cool. And what's the easiest way for people to find the project on Kickstarter?
Oh, I think if you just go into Kickstarter and type in Metro, it pops right up. It's like right on the top of the list when you type that in. And I think right now we're at a week out, so we've got there's still plenty of time. And there's a lot of cool, pledge tiers and a lot of interesting add-ons and things like that. So, we're trying to make this as exciting of a project as possible for the people who back us.
Awesome. And so obviously we wanted to talk about that as the majority of this, but you also have a new book coming out that was announced a few weeks ago and is now in previews as Guardians of the Galaxy. Which, by the way, amazing title.
Thank you.
What's that all about?
As Guardians of the Galaxy is a book that I pitched to Marvel. I think I looked it up. When they finally called me and said, yes, let's do it, I called up my initial emails. And I pitched this book to Marvel in 2015. And it is what it says. And yes, some people ask me, is this really a book just based on sort of a pun? And yeah, I pitched Marvel a title and said, hey, let's do a book called As Guardians of the Galaxy. Let's take some of the best Asgardian characters, from the world of Thor, and put them in space and send them on space adventures. And that was, I think at the time of the pitch, I had a team that I pitched them and some initial stories, and that's changed a little bit since that initial pitch. But yeah, it was basically, it did start with me saying, hey, As Guardians of the Galaxy is a pretty great title for a book. I'm surprised Marvel hasn't done it already. And me, building a story around that title, and then just waiting for it to be the right time at Marvel. It took a while, and now with the Infinity Wars book coming out and this coming out as a tie-in to it, it just seemed like the right time for them to greenlight it.
Very cool. Excited for that book. As soon as I saw the title, I was like, I'm buying the first issue based on that alone. And then when your name popped up, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun book. I put together a team that I think is pretty dynamic and interesting. A lot of different kinds of characters, and I think the story that we're telling is fun. Even though it's billed as an Infinity Wars tie-in, you don't need to read Infinity Wars to read it. It's its own story. I think I reference, whatever I had to reference Infinity Wars, a couple of times, but for the most part, I'm kind of just saying this is just its own story. It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, we've got a book with Angela. She's a super cool character, and Valkyrie and Executioner, who's awesome. And you've got a book with Thor. Thor Frog. What more could you want from a comic book than Thor Frog?
Thor Frog needs to be more in comics. I agree with you there.
Well, you'll never think of that character the same after this book. I've decided that Thor Frog needs to be the character that people are going to watch from now on. So he's a very I'm doing some cool things with him, I think.
Awesome. So that's everybody. It's Kickstarter.com. Search for Metro. You can pledge. You have until the end of the week as of when this releases. And check your previous catalog as Guardians of the Galaxy. Tell your comic shop you want it now and get it when it comes out. Cullen, thanks again for being on the show. Is there anywhere you want me to direct people as far as social media?
Yeah, you can always go to my website, which is easy to find. It's, cullenbunn.com. You can find me on Twitter. It's super easy. It's at Cullen Bunn. And those are the places I'm most active.
Cool. Thanks again for being on. I appreciate you taking some time to talk to me.
Oh, man, anytime.
And we're back.
Woo! Wow.
Dude, as Guardians of the Galaxy sounds so cool.
Yeah, I cannot wait. I love that we get to interview these writers and we get to talk to them, and then we get to read the books. And I'm so excited all the time. I can't get over how much fun this is doing this podcast. And the book they're doing on Kickstarter, Metro, looks so cool. If you don't know, the other two creators on it, Walter Flanagan and Brian Quinn, are from the Tell 'em Steve Dave podcast, and they've been on TV shows as well. So big names, really cool guys, and it just sounds like a really cool project. Really dark though, so reader beware on that one. Which means I already have 20 copies ordered. Yeah. Yes. Awesome. Okay, so let's do some talking about other things in between this other interview we got. I have not watched Luke Cage. I'm still only 10 minutes in. I will say I'm going to get to it. I promise I'm going to get to it. I get sidetracked really easily. I've been told by numerous people to check out this Netflix series called Dark. It is a German Stranger Things is how I describe it. Only German because it is subtitles. There is a dubbed version though. If you want to watch it like one of those old school Bruce Lee movies, if you're okay with that, it's kind of strange. I don't know. It's because it's high quality video you're watching with this dub. But yeah, if you like Stranger Things, if you like really mysterious sci-fi and horror, you should definitely watch this. It involves a little more time travel than Stranger Things. I'm only 3 episodes in, but there's definitely it almost takes the idea of Stranger Things and progresses it even further with the science aspect. There's a lot of mystery to Stranger Things, but this is more of it's definitely the timelines are going to be crossed. There's a lot of references to being from the future, being from the past. There's characters that have some sort of time travel device. So if you're a fan of Fringe, when that show's on, definitely check this out. I'm loving it so far. When I start a show and I can't stop watching it, it's good. I will watch Luke Cage, I promise. I did watch Preacher on Sunday. Yes, so did I. Wow. Man, brings a tear to my eye. How just they're getting everything right, dude. At least so I think. We finally get to this season's all about Jesse Custer's family. Yes. The whole plot device of using Tulip's death as a reason for him to go back. It's awesome. And the guy who's playing what the hell's his name? Josie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. That is exactly how I pictured him from the comic book. Josie's like, this hick that he doesn't feel pain. He's lost it, and when he lifts up the truck too, I'm like, okay, there's some superhuman ability about him as well. It's awesome. And the fact that they use it it adds a little layer that the comic book never had of like they make more like a museum basically, right? Yeah. It's just a front, and she does her mysticism or something like that, which is cool. Like there's a tie to that old school voodoo and mysticism that we saw from the second season. It was just a great episode. I'm loving it, man. How do you feel about it?
I absolutely loved it too, and everything you said, but then the parts with Tulip and Purgatory, and how Purgatory is like basically a sitcom, but fucked up sitcom. And then when she's on her way out, she runs into God in the dog gimp suit.
In the dog gimp suit, man. Wow.
Yeah, and then the whole back and forth with oh man, the Irish guy, the two main characters, their whole back and forth.
Cassidy and
Jesse.
Yes.
Fuck, I just fucked that up. But anyways, so the back and forth there and how they're kind of pissed at each other over both of their relationships with Tulip. And like that first fight that's kind of happening in the background while we have different perspectives, like really cool stuff. Whoever's choreographing all this is doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw that in the second season with like the ballroom brawling and all that stuff. The fight has been crazy. And they even like the intro gives you, I kind of skipped the intro to the episode because it gives you way too much of what's going on in the season. Like it shows you like where Hitler is and stuff. If you watch the intro, it shows like characters that you don't even see in the episode. So I kind of like skipped over it. I was like, I don't want to know. I want to start fresh. I don't want to know any of this stuff coming up. So it was a really dark episode. I mean, we learned about Tulip's past and how her dad was a deadbeat. Her mom was selling her body to get by. And then we have this little like dark humor in between it all that like, she's been interacting with a younger version of herself in Purgatory, but then as she's about to leave, she's like, listen, I just got hired to do this job. And like the little girl goes full like demonic voice. Like, hey, I just got hired to play the part. I don't know anything else. It was hilarious. Like that little stuff is like, you can tell that came from Seth Rogen too. Like that type of humor is just like so on point, and it's so perfect for the show. It fits so well.
Yeah, this show, the first episode is so great, and it just reminds me of why it's probably my favorite show on air right now. Easily.
Okay. So speaking of great TV shows, the book that I'm reading by Jeff Lemire just got picked up for a TV series, Gideon Falls, which, I mean, they only released like, I don't know, 4 or 5 issues. Hey, it's interesting, that's for sure. It's along the lines of like Outcast and Witches by Scott Snyder. It's that type of atmosphere of a book. And that's really all I know right now. You don't know a whole lot other than there's some type of creepy mystical thing that it has to do with religion as well, because there's a priest involved. Kind of a lot like Outcast, but I actually prefer this to Outcast. My problem with Outcast was like things weren't happening quick enough. It was kind of just being dragged out over a long period of time.
Yeah.
But this is great for Jeff Lemire, man. I mean, awesome. Good for him. It might mean that we will never have him on the show again. Now that he's probably going to be helping write the TV show for this. But hey, we landed him before it,
it's kind of par for the course of Image right now, too. Because it feels like you get, 3-4 issues in and you get
TV
picked
show.
Up. So, hopefully it goes somewhere. Jeff Lemire is an amazing storyteller, and it's been a matter of time before someone does this with one of his properties. So
you got to think about it too. If I'm a producer for a TV, I don't know how this works at all, but if I'm a producer for those, AMC and stuff, when you think about it, you're not going to go to DC or Marvel to pick up a show because first off, you have to pay for the trademarking. Second off, you have to pay for all these really expensive gadgets and suits. But if you go to an Image comic book, right, most of the characters are just in everyday clothing. A lot of the interactions deal with just a dialogue between characters or some type of mystery to the book. I mean, there's a lot of books that are just like, about like haunted stuff or evil things that you really don't have to show too much right away. So it's probably really easy for them to order a pilot because, I mean, they already have the script, right? They have the first 4 issues.
Yeah.
And they don't need to build these elaborate sets or costumes. So it's like, I think for Gideon Falls, they'll probably have to build like a barn for the first pilot because he has a vision of a barn, but that's like the only thing that they need to do. Yeah, I'm excited for it.
And they see the upside. I mean, just look at The Walking Dead. People want to shit on it now, but at one point, Walking Dead was the biggest thing on the entire planet, and now that it's not exactly the biggest thing on the entire planet, it's still one of the biggest TV shows on air. So there's money to be made.
Oh yeah, there's always money to be made. Okay, so movie news. I don't know if this is going to be money to be made or money to be lost, but probably lots of money to be lost. Sony announces 2 more Spider-Man spin-offs. I can't even. I'm like trying not to laugh. Silk and Mobius the Living Vampire, which is like, okay, that's pretty cool. And they cast Jared Leto as the vampire already.
Yeah. So
Sony, just stop. Can you guys just stop?
We're getting a Spider-Man movie at the end of the year, and it's centered around Miles, and it's going to be the Spider-Verse storyline. And it was a big deal that Spider-Gwen was going to be in the movie. And knowing my feelings on Spider-Gwen, I'm not a big fan of the whole idea. But I'm in the minority. Spider-Gwen's a popular character. So my first question for this whole thing is, why the fuck did you pick Silk? A character that barely lasted 4 issues and then went away over
doesn't have a following
Spider-Gwen.
like Spider-Gwen does. Yeah.
That's my first problem.
Yeah.
Then my second one is Spider-Gwen has a chance to kind of, pick up and be something big. Like, it has a chance to be Deadpool-esque in terms of sales and following and stuff like that. But you pick Silk. Then my second question. Mobius the Living Vampire. Now, I get you want to do genre-esque movies with this. But why? Like, Mobius, even in comic speak, isn't a big name. Like, people don't really know this character.
Yeah.
And then Jared Leto. Like, Jared Leto, I know, is a great actor, but he has a stink on him right now because of Joker.
You know what they're thinking? They're like, listen, he's already going to be in pale white makeup. His hair is going to be dyed already. We could cash in on this. We're going to only have to pay him half for wardrobe. We can save a lot of money here, people. It's
such a confusing idea. It's like they want to be number 3 in the comic movie world.
They're like, I don't know.
Yeah. Like, I was all for when they were doing Sinister Six, that movie.
Yeah.
And I still think that Venom has a chance to be really good. But these, like, and obviously a great story and a character and a great writer's hands can be great. So these movies could be amazing and they blow us away, and 3-4 years from now we're talking about how these are the best comic book movies ever. But that's not likely. So it's a confusing move on my end, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I mean, as far as news goes, that's about it. It's definitely the calm before the storm for San Diego Comic-Con. I'm seeing a lot of stuff that's being brought to San Diego Comic-Con that's going to be shown off, which is interesting because, Disney has their own. They have the D23, right?
Yeah.
I just saw that they released 3 different Saga posters, like the original, early 2000, and then now, which almost leads me to believe that they're gonna maybe come out with like a collected edition again or something like that. I don't think it's definitely not the medium to announce new stuff or trailers. But I mean, easily, if they wanted to be the biggest news coming out of San Diego Comic-Con, they'd drop like a trailer for, I don't know, Star Wars 9 or something. They could easily disrupt everything. But if I had to guess, I don't know.
And Star Wars needs a better news cycle. Like, they really blew it with Solo, and it wasn't the quality of the movie or anything. It was just, I think it's proof that you still need marketing for these things. Yeah,
you can't just throw Star Wars on something and throw it out there. It definitely could have used the marketing that Rogue One had. Rogue One was everywhere.
Yeah. Well, the fact that, I still think, I know they weren't originally supposed to be Christmas movies, but I think those movies just fit so well in that Christmas time slot. Yeah. And them trying to shift them back to the March, April area. Or no, sorry, it was May that it came out.
May, yeah.
The May area where Free Comic Book Day hits, and so they can take that time slot from people. I just don't know. Maybe it's because it was too close to Last Jedi. There's so many things that could have happened there, but I think they really blew it with that, and they realized that. And moving forward, they're gonna, try to fix that. So maybe it would be a cool place to do it, especially since Marvel Studios dropped out of San Diego.
Yeah, which is interesting.
Yeah, to say the least. So Disney's got to do something, because now it just looks like DC's going to run away with it.
Yeah, and I for sure, because we know they have D23, but that doesn't mean you could just not have a presence. It's because you're basically giving DC a free con. To just
that's like saying Sony can just skip E3 because they got their own thing they do in December. Like, no,
right. No, Microsoft is still going to demolish you if you just let them run wild. Okay, well, we have a great interview to cut to with Jason Yungbluth, so we're going to do that now, and then we'll see you guys on the other side.
Hey guys, Chris here, interrupting the show real quick. Remember, if you want to show your support for Force Comic News, head on down to patreon.com/Force Comic News, where just $1 a month gets you access to our Slack channel, where we can talk comics all day and all night, and exclusive Patreon podcast that we're uploading very soon. A series of games that we play with all the great guests we have here on Force Comic News. You're going to get one of those every month. And just $1 a month gets it for you. So remember, that's the best way to show your support there and to help a growing community and to be a part of it with us. So everybody, thanks for your support, and on with the show.
And welcome back, everybody. Today we have a special guest, Jason Yungbluth, writer of the awesome book Weapon Brown. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Hello, it is a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, man, thanks for being on. And Chris, you messed up the name even after asking him how to.
It's my thing. It's my thing.
Weapon Brown. Look, he's got his copy. I got my copy.
I refuse to be seen. I will only be known by this comic. This is the only thing I've done that will ever amount to anything.
I mean, if that's all you want to talk about, that's fine for me. I love this book. I think before we talk about it, though, let's what got you into comics, man? Your drawing, your writing. How did this become part of your life?
Well, I've been an artist my entire life. I've known even since I was a little kid that I wanted to be a cartoonist, and that was just something I set my sights on and just followed it without thinking. There's some cartoonists in my family. I always like to tell people that my great uncle Bob Donovan used to be the artist on the Snuffy Smith comic strip for newspapers. He was the artist on it for a few decades. So
wow.
There's a history of people. I've desecrated his legacy because he made money in cartoons. I decided to follow him halfway. I said I want to do as many comics as I want and not make it. So.
Hey, you're trying though. You're halfway there.
Yeah, halfway there. I just need 15 more years.
That's interesting though, because I think out of most of the artists we've interviewed, I don't think they refer to themselves as cartoonists. So you originally started drawing what, panels, that style? Like, is there a difference between cartooning and comic books, or?
Well, I call myself a cartoonist just because, I mean, other people might call themselves illustrators or what have you. I guess it's just a matter of your taste.
Yep.
I mean, my preferred mode of art is cartooning, which is to say, drawn pictures with words associated, and that's just how I think of myself. And what was the rest of your question? I'm sorry.
I think you got it. I think you covered it. Yeah, it was like there was like 3 parts to it. I can't even remember what the rest of the question was. But awesome. So I'm just thinking a lot of things to ask at once, so that I just start to blurt it all out. So then you started off with you started doing a web series, right? This Deep Fried.
Yeah, well, actually, the web series sort of was an adjunct to my comic book, my first comic book, which I'll show you.
Wow.
This is actually the latest. One of the here, I'll show you the latest issue of the comic that started it all. So this is Deep Fried, but I've been doing Deep Fried since 2000. So originally, my intent was Deep Fried began with some characters I created like back when I was 12. They evolved through the years. It eventually became a newspaper. A newspaper strip for my college newspaper.
Okay.
Took a stab at trying to get it syndicated, and even though there was some interest in me, there wasn't really interest in the strip. But around the same time, I discovered Evan Dorkin, and I thought Milk and Cheese was the funniest thing I'd ever read, and I was like,
yeah.
Got to make a decision. Am I going to, do the humor I want, or am I going to have to water myself down a little bit? And I probably made the wrong decision, but I ended up self-publishing my comic books, beginning with Deep Fried as a humor comic, and then the my website I produce at the same time. I'm not sure exactly if I was offering Deep Fried as a web strip at that point. I was selling the comic that way, but. No, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, pretty soon after I started doing a weekly strip. Not necessarily the same stuff I was doing in the comic book. I started doing kind of a political strip that featured the same characters. And so I sort of had my like underground humor material on one hand and commentary on George Bush and 9/11 and all that stuff on the other hand. That was also appearing in, for a while, it was appearing in a few all-weekly papers. So I had several, Deep Fried projects going at once. But eventually I settled down on doing the comic book. That again, it turned out that politics wasn't probably the best way to present these characters. I really wanted to do stuff that was more just traditional stories and outrageous material.
Awesome. Yeah, it's got to be tough with political cartoons because I mean. You're basically splitting your fan base right down the middle from the get-go, almost. Well,
it's tricky. So of course, politics, the material doesn't age well.
Yeah.
But there was a positive side to it, which is that the weekly strip, I started experimenting with new styles of storytelling. Not all my strips for the alt weeklies were political either. I sort of veered between doing strips that commented on the news of the day with stuff that was just like kind of outlandish and one-off gags. A friend of mine was just telling me this week or this weekend that one of his favorite strips of mine was, which is one of mine too, which was just a single page strip about why are toothbrushes? Why are they always trying to create a new angle on toothbrushes? There's nothing new to do with a toothbrush, right? It was pretty much perfected, about 1 year after the first one was invented. And I always saw these toothbrush commercials are like, they're like, we have a new dentist style angle so you can reach your back teeth. Like, my back teeth aren't a light year away or something. Why are they pretending they're so hard to clean? And then the joke was that toothbrush designs are being sent to us from the future by aliens who want our teeth to be perfect so they can turn them into
That is awesome.
I got jokes like that out of the experience, and so the weekly strip style Deep Fried comics I think were worthwhile. They gave me some new ways to do my material that I might not have done if I was only telling them like the long form stories in my comic book.
Wow. Yeah, it has to be the only explanation behind the toothbrush theory. I mean,
yeah, and they're still trying. I mean, anytime you buy a toothbrush, you're getting swindled. Anytime they cut, well, what do they got to do? They've got to make this old-fashioned technology seem new and relevant. Every couple couple months, they have to find a way to justify their existence.
It's so funny you brought that up because like I was around last year. I had some oral surgery on like a back tooth, and they're like, okay, we're gonna give you this special toothbrush to reach the back of your teeth. And when I look at this thing, it's just like a regular toothbrush, but like half the bristles are missing.
Yeah.
So I like after a week of using it, I was like, this is just my regular toothbrush. I can just reach back there with my regular toothbrush. I don't need this. So I threw it out.
Why is that saved for oral surgery moments? Like, why isn't that our normal brush so we can always get to the back?
Yeah. So I could prevent the surgeries. I don't know. It's a whole conspiracy. I believe it now. You've convinced me.
Yeah. It's call Alex Jones. He's on the wrong track. It's aliens and what they're trying to do with their teeth.
Wow. You learn something new every day, I guess. Okay, so let's talk Weapon Brown, man. I think I picked up Weapon Brown maybe a couple of years ago. It had to be at least a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
They were selling it in our local comic shop in Victor, New York. I since don't live around there anymore. Chris still does. But I remember reading the description to Weapon Brown, and it was like, this, I need to have this in my life. So I guess you could just give us a rundown of like, where did this idea come from? Like how long were you thinking about doing this? And you could give us a quick plot description for the listeners too.
Like most of my work, it seems that my most energetic period of imagination must have occurred when I was like 12, 13, 14. So sometime back around then, I had just the idea of a one-page gag. I was a big fan of Apocalypse movies, Mad Max,
Yep.
Dog. By the way, let's pour one for Harlan Ellison. He just died the other day.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The author, famous science fiction author, he wrote A Boy and His Dog, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of novels.
Yeah, but A Boy and His Dog especially was influential. I used to listen to an audio book of him reading that story.
Oh, wow.
Movie later on, and it was. I started to notice that a lot of apocalypse stories seem to feature like the wandering gun for hire and their dog, because they always have like a dog companion. It got me thinking, what's the ultimate boy and his dog? It's got to be Charlie Brown and Snoopy. So I did a one-page gag. It was like a beefed-up Charlie Brown with a cyborg arm and snarling Snoopy next to him. And I think the punchline was something like, Charlie Brown 2025, no more failure face. I really like the Peanut. I wasn't so much a fan of the Peanuts strip as I was the Peanuts cartoon specials. Mm. So I just did this as a goof for myself. Years later, when I started doing Deep Fried, which was humor anthology, I needed some material, and I thought, well, why don't I take this idea and I'll serialize it, and I'll just create one long story about Charlie Brown taking revenge on the Peanuts gang in this post-apocalyptic future. And that was the initial story. It ran through the first 4 issues of Deep Fried, and it became my most popular feature. So I eventually collected it into a single 48-page volume, and then later, when people wanted more, I thought, well, I've exhausted all my Charlie Brown gags, but there's still every other comic strip character to make fun of. And he's like the next progression of Charlie Brown's adventure or Weapon Brown's adventure should be a battle royale with Calvin and Hobbes. So
yes.
So and along the way, he encounters basically every other comic strip character you could name, and then it leads to like an Arnold versus the T-1000 style battle between Weapon Brown, the old style cyborg, and the far more advanced Calvin and his cyborg tiger. Yeah,
exactly, and that part was so epic. Yeah. I mean, he encounters like a Popeye, the Calvin and Hobbes, the Garfield. Post-apocalyptic Garfield is ridiculous.
Orphan Annie.
Orphan Annie. Yep.
I made I researched this as well as I could, so that there's no character, either a major character or just a background character, who isn't borrowed from some newspaper strip from antiquity or from modernity. So absolutely every character in Weapon Brown, the graphic novel, is if you know your stuff, you'll be able to recognize this character from the Little King, or the Yellow Kid, or Poor Little Mose, or basically any comic strip you can name.
So awesome.
Thank you. I'm proud. Yeah, so Weapon Brown, that became a web strip, building off of the original 48-page story. That became a web strip that I ran for several years on my website. I would create print-on-demand issues, and then I ran a Kickstarter to fund the collecting of all that material plus some new stuff into the single volume. And as you can see, it's pretty darn thick. This is like, I call it yellow so it would remind people of a phone book. It's like the most fun you can get from a phone book.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
So yeah, 416 pages, and it's done real well for me, and turned out to be really worth my time. But it was never intended to be this big. What would happen is I would come up with gags for particular strips I wanted to lampoon, and it's like, okay, I got to do why Beetle Bailey, why you can never see him with his helmet off. I'll take his helmet off and I'll show you. I got to do a joke about a Dagwood sandwich. I got to do a joke about Garfield. But then it didn't occur to me as I was laying out all these jokes, it's like, oh my gosh, there's going to have to be 10 pages of story in between each gag. So the story just grew and grew.
I think my favorite part of the book was the Christmas special.
Oh yeah,
and why they all started dancing violently. Right? It was like completely uncontrollable.
That one I thought had it had kind of a bleak ending to it, and when I wrote it, I was like, "Ooh, my God!" Because I love Charlie Brown. Especially the Christmas special. I love them all. So it's like, what's wrong with me that I got to, all these parodies of the holiday specials all turned out to be so nihilistic.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that one of the reasons I like this so much is like, wow, they had such a dark twist to it. It's like, this is awesome. Yeah. What was your favorite part, Chris?
I absolutely love the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown story. That one really got me. But so kind of fast forwarding to a few years ago, what was your thoughts when they announced that they were doing a Scooby Doo Apocalypse, which was a very similar idea to this?
Well, sooner or later, everything will be known as the apocalypse. So it's I just like to think that I caught the wave first. Scooby Doo Apocalypse, haven't read it, it's funny because I actually did my own take on Scooby Doo for Mad Magazine. I did a recurring strip called Scooby Don't.
Oh, wow.
The joke is take a Scooby-Doo related gag and find a way to make it gory, So the first one sort of sets the tone. Is they've captured the guy in the costume, and they pull off the mask, and it's like, oh, it's Lord Bumbershoot or whatever. And then Fred says, and now we're going to see who Lord Bumbershoot really is. And then he's like, wait, what are you doing? And they rip off his face. And it's Scooby-Doo, then they take it too far, So I got no problem with the Scooby-Doo Apocalypse. All people need to know is that my book is 1,000 times better.
For sure. For sure.
So is there more Weapon Brown planned or out there?
There will be one more Weapon Brown product. I sort of hesitated on doing it because I really didn't want to go back to the well. But what happened is just recently I ran a Kickstarter to fund the reprint of the graphic novel because I had a bunch of inventory and I thought it would last forever. Then suddenly it hit big again on the internet. I ran out of stock. And it's like, oh no, what am I going to do? You gotta. It's the paradox of success. You're so successful that you don't have anything to sell. So I needed to reprint the book. And as one of my incentives, I said, well, what I'll do is I will create a new, going back to my roots, I'll create a new 48-page epilogue to the graphic novel. So it will not. I won't give away what's going to be in it, but it will be set in the future, just a little, a few years after the original storyline, and it's going to have several stories of Weapon Brown and a story also of one of the more popular characters from Weapon Brown, who wasn't Chuck himself. And then I anticipate that will probably be it. I do have a notion for a follow-on that could go beyond that, but it's the sort of thing where I think a story is better when you just let it conclude. And I think this epilogue will not diminish the effectiveness of the graphic novel, because the graphic novel has a clear ending to it. You can always tag more stuff onto it, but I think the epilogue is crafted in such a way is that it's not going to diminish anything that was finalized in the graphic novel. It's basically just here's one more bite at the apple, but I'm not trying to sequelize Weapon Brown. The story has been told, really. That will be out, by the way. I'm planning. I'd like to be December. It all depends on if I can. One thing I wanted to do is maybe get some other artists to help me illustrate the different stories in the comic. That's kind of up in the air. So I'm shooting for February is probably when it's going to be released. So look for it in your favorite local comic shop.
Awesome. Do you have any other projects going on right now?
Oh my, yes. Oh yes.
Oh, let's talk about some projects then.
Hold on there. Okay, so yeah, thank you for asking. Well, so Weapon Brown, of course, is my bread and butter. Excuse me, I had it and then I muffed it. It's my bread and butter project. But I'm also done and continuing to do Deep Fried. Deep Fried is currently being serialized as a web strip on my site, and I'm hoping to have a graphic novel of it later on in 2019 if things go well. This is issue 1 and issue 2 of, I don't know which one I should hold up. Here we go. Of Deep Fried, The Hero's Journey. So this takes the Beepo and Roadkill characters, who are my oldest surviving comic strip characters. Oh, hold on one second. My screen just went on. And this is, and I took them out of the typical Deep Fried comic book, which was an anthology with lots of different characters. And I said, let's give them their own story. So this will be between a 4 and a 6 issue story that will basically wrap up the Beepo and Roadkill cast of characters.
Okay. Cool.
And it's just outrageous kookiness. This is sort of like, I like to say, it's my Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers line of characters, my most underground style. And I've had those characters forever, and I thought maybe it's time to give them a send off. And in the meantime, this is Peak. This came out a little over a year ago, and this was just also an anthology with just random humor, narrated by this character called the Peaker, who is kind of like the Watcher from.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so he's like half Watcher, half Crypt Keeper. He just sort of narrates the stories, and I'm working on that's Peak the first. Peak the second will be out in October, which means it'll be solicited in August time in previews. And it's funny, it's obscene, my hook is that this is the comic book that will show the things that no other comic book will show. And to prove it, I decided to make my debut issue feature the Prophet Muhammad. So
oh wow.
If you're going to risk anything, risk everything.
Put it up front right there, yeah.
So yeah, and in all truth, I believe Peak is the only guy. I mean, I'm not. I didn't try to sensationalize this. I just basically did it because it's like everyone's talking about, oh, can't do this. I was like, well, I can. And I think literally that Peak is probably the only periodical publication since the Charlie Hebdo massacre that has been published in North America that actually just featured a Muhammad cartoon, which incidentally is not a riff on Muhammad. It's not bashing Muhammad at all. I just said, hey, I'm going to put Muhammad in a cartoon, and all the people who think it can never be done, it's like, well, it can if you're willing to just stop buying the dogma from all the people who are paranoid. So the joke, actually, it's one of my favorite strips because the joke is it's Mickey Mouse asking Muhammad how he can preserve his trademark. Wow. And I think I'm probably more scared of Walt Disney's lawyers than I am of
wow.
Possibly.
Yeah, that's just like
the next issue even more horrifying. My goal is to have everything I produce ripped off of comic shelves and thrown in the dumpster because it's just too hot.
That is awesome. I'm picking that up for sure. So, like, where can we find these books, or besides comic shops? Do you have them online anywhere?
I certainly do. You can, with Weapon Brown, if you go to weaponbrown.com, you can purchase it from that site, which is a subsite of whatisdeepfried.com, which is my main website. And there's a store right off the front page of whatisdeepfried.com, and you can purchase all my products through that store as well.
That's awesome. And what's a great a place for social media that you're on that you like to send people to?
Oh, I'm everywhere. I'm doing all the hot ones. I'm doing the MySpace. Okay, I'm doing AOL chat rooms. I am all over the webs.
AOL chat rooms for sure.
You can find me on Twitter at I am Deathray. You can follow me on what's that thing called? The Instagrams. I try to grandpa it up whenever I talk about myself. I don't want people to think that I'm hip at all. So on Instagram,
either are we, it's fine.
I believe I'm going by Death_Ray_graphics. That's my company, Death Ray Graphics. Or just look for my name. You should be able to find me through the hashtag search. Jason Yungbluth on Facebook. Death Ray Graphics on DeviantArt. On DeviantArt and on something. No, wait. DeviantArt. What's the other one? That's the other big. Newgrounds. That's the one I'm doing.
Oh, Newgrounds.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I think that's it. If I think of any more, I'll email you. Oh, you can get me on email. Email me at Jason at whatisdeepfried.com.
Awesome.
That's the original chat.
It's funny that you bring up MySpace because Mike and I joke constantly, and one day I'm going to actually do it, of putting the podcast on MySpace just so we can say we're the #1 podcast on MySpace, because I don't think anyone else does it.
Go for it. Everything comes around again, and I think it's about time. Especially with all this Cambridge Analytica stuff with Facebook.
Oh yeah,
searching. So they want to go back to where it all began.
They're like, our time has finally come.
Yeah.
So, Jason, thanks so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it, and I look forward to more books from yours. I'm sure you'll be getting an order from both of us sometime tonight.
Thanks, man.
And it's great to be on your podcast. I was just listening to some of your episodes earlier today. It's awesome.
And we're back.
Oh, wow. What a great interview. And that was awesome playing 20 questions. Guess the character with him, that if you guys are part of the Patreon, you throw some money over there, you get that exclusive content. You get to see that Jason and I struggle as we try to guess the character that Chris chose for us, which should have been so obvious from us at the first, but it's 20 questions. It's tough, man. You think you have all the questions. You're like, I'm not going to use 20 questions. As you start off, you start asking stupid things like, I'm not going to need all these. Yeah, it was tough.
And him talking about Weapon Brown, like Weapon Brown's such a cool book, and
yeah,
the other books he has coming out, I'm so in to check those out. So
yeah, I'm actually, I just went to whatisdeepfried.com and I'm checking out Peak, the first standard edition, which is his Watcher style spoof that he does. I mean, it's $5. There's a digital edition too, and the art and stuff. It's just, it's great. So I'm going to be picking up that tonight and read it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of books you've been reading, Mike.
Wow, it's almost like I planned that. Wow. Yeah, good at this, Chris. So I caught up on Venom this week because number 3 came out on Wednesday.
Yep.
Wow. If you told me that there was a book coming out with Venom that would contain a large giant dragon, I would have said you're crazy. But if then you told me Donny Cates was writing it, I would have been like, oh, that makes perfect sense. I don't know where the story is going to go, but basically, his symbiote's demolished. It's gone. We find the Lord of Symbiotes, right?
Yeah.
That's what he is. He's the leader of them. So what that means, they set us up in this issue to find out, right? We're gonna find the origin. I'm sure. And that the name he announces as himself doesn't really ring a bell with me. I'm not so well versed in the Marvel universe like you, but I think was it like Krull or something like that? Was that his name?
Yeah.
Krull. I think that's the name he announced himself as.
Knull. And no, it didn't ring a bell for me personally. No.
Okay. So he might be a brand new character here or something that we haven't seen in a long time. It's a great book. The art is, like I said before, it's like throwing me back in the 90s to read comics. I like it a lot.
Yeah, book was really good. The best way to explain what Donny Cates is doing is just that it's metal as fuck, man. Everything about that book, from a giant symbiote dragon to Null or whatever his name is, and it was fantastic. And then the whole back and forth between him and Miles in the beginning was a lot of fun too.
Yeah,
I absolutely love that. So it looks like Null is this was his first appearance, as I'm looking it up.
Okay, so it's a new character created by Donnie. That's cool. Yeah, and I wasn't expecting. I mean, issue 2 I read a little late, but I wasn't expecting the whole interaction between Spider-Man and Venom, which is good to know that Donnie is allowed to play with those characters too.
Yeah, and that's one thing with Donnie. Like, he's been creating characters left and right.
Yeah,
Cosmic Ghost Rider, which everyone loves, and now this, and it just seems like he's got really cool ideas on how to expand the Marvel universe, and it's good to see.
got to get that boy on the show, but he's a little busy, I think.
A little bit.
Yeah, so I read that. I read Saga this week. Wow. Spoilers for Saga 53, I believe.
Yeah.
So we're gonna give you 10 seconds to skip ahead if you're reading Saga number 53 and you do not want this spoiled. It'll be 5 seconds and we're gonna talk about it. Okay. Yeah, so really great episode. It feels like an episode. Yeah, so we get 2 main character deaths. We get the weird pig nose bounty hunter dies. And then Prince Robot, or King, I guess he's Prince, gets his head ripped off.
By the Will.
And I love that the Will has like a mask on now, like a superhero.
Yeah, he reminds me of like a Zorro, because he has that sword that extends out, but it looks like an old-timey sword.
I love the robot deaths. We needed a main character death, and I think out of all of them, it makes the most sense. Like, he's going to be gone. That leaves a reason for the kid robot to stick around. It also leaves a reason for that the other girl that they're traveling with to stay with them.
Yeah,
because the beginning of the issue, they actually, that whole piece that they were planning on writing gets snuffed out. Like that article's not even going to happen. So they weren't in the clear like they thought they were. They had plans to release the truth about the robot kingdom or whatever, and then they were going to change their identities and disappear from the world. But after that got snuffed out, there really wasn't any other path for him to go. And it sets us up for an awesome battle between the Will and Marco. And Marco's already armored up with a shield. He's like ready to go.
Yeah, and it turns the Will into a really cool villain, because not only is Marco probably going to battle with him next issue, but Prince Robot was shacking it up with that the other character.
Yeah,
I forget her name now, but now she's going to be pissed. So I think it creates a cool dynamic between them, because now Will's pissed at them for this death, and they're pissed at the Will for these deaths, and
it's the most
cool arc.
It's the most confusing love triangle that's turning into like a 3-dimensional pyramid of deaths, because first we have the 2 reporters, right? It all starts off with the Will loses the love of his life.
Yes.
And then he kills Prince Robot because Prince Robot killed her. And then the 2 reporters his husband gets killed by the other bounty hunter, so then he kills her, but she was already mad at the Will for killing her brother, I think, or husband. I can't remember. It's like, it's turning into like a Quentin Tarantino movie really fast. It's like what's happening.
Yeah, it's so good though.
Yeah, it's good. It's not like random useless deaths though. I mean, it all makes sense. Like, you get pissed, you're going to kill these people. Saga is just a really good book. If you're not reading Saga by now, what are you doing with your life? Is all I can ask. But yeah, that's about it for me. You brought to my attention, I picked up a couple books last week pretty late that I have to read still. They're on my Comixology on my phone. But one of them is Weatherman by the man who does, I don't know his name right now, sorry, but it's the guy who does Shirtless Bear Fighter. So obviously I had to pick that up.
And I didn't get a chance to talk about it because it happened on a week that we weren't together. But yeah, if you like Total Recall and at the same time like that, like Tron or Blade Runner-esque sci-fi mashed together, that's what this book is. Like, it's so cool. It's really colorful, but bleak at the same time because there's some sort of event that happened on Earth that forces everybody to Mars. And the first issue is fantastic.
I would love to get him on the show. I'm sure you're already making attempts, but just to even talk about Shirtless Bear Fighter, because to go from because I've already read like half that issue, but to go from Shirtless Bear Fighter to this like dystopian future, like how do you just switch gears like that?
As a quick aside to that, have you seen the Shirtless Bear Fighter action figures?
No, I didn't even know that was a thing. I'm gonna look it up right.
Yeah, so they do two of them, and one is they're both the lead character, the Shirtless Bear Fighter, but one is him with pants and one is him without pants. Oh, and the one without pants is all pixelated.
Yeah, it's pixelated. Oh my god, that's hilarious.
They're pretty funny.
Yeah, that's how they show him in the comic. The pixel goes all the way down to his knees. I'll probably end up getting one of these, probably the non-pixelated one where he has pants on. But yeah, that is awesome. Another cool thing we haven't really talked about with San Diego Comic-Con is all the exclusive figures and stuff they're releasing. I know Funko's already gone wild with all the Flash Pop figures and stuff, so I can't even begin to look at those because it's just so much to keep track of now.
Yeah, I've got a line on some Conan Pops.
Nice. Yeah, because he does all the coverage still, right? He does the whole week of coverage on his show.
Yeah, they just announced some cool Conan Pops too, where they're going to do just a regular Conan and then a Super Conan, and then there's one in between, which is the classic Superman pose of him ripping the shirt.
Yeah.
And then they're doing a old Action Comics cover, popified as a T-shirt with Conan in replacement. So.
And he doesn't mean Conan the Barbarian, he means Conan O'Brien, everybody, just in case we want to clear that up.
I love Conan. I think he's hilarious.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, his show is fantastic. And he gets so excited having all those San Diego Comic-Con guests on. All right, that's all I got. What do you got, Chris?
We got Man of Steel number 5. Dude, so good. Like, there's just so much going on. Superman and this alien are fighting on the moon. The Justice League shows up, and the villain in this story flees, and nobody knows why. And Superman eventually figures it out, and it's because he told him that my goal is to eradicate the universe of Kryptonians. And the only way to do it is the same way I tried to do it before, which is to destroy the planet in which you live on. So he's at the center of the Earth, about to destroy the Earth. And the next issue is the last one. And I'm super excited. Bendis has been killing it on Superman.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pick that up. I said it before as a trade for sure.
The Realm number 7. This was, if you listen to the Super Friends podcast, this was like my pick that I was talking to them about. The Realm is so fucking good. This issue revolves around this mage that is in charge of this barbarian group, and we find out that, spoiler alert, he's not the head person. There's this red woman who's really the leader of all of this, and she's got all the real power. And in the meantime, our cast of characters is out trying to figure out where to go after the events of the last storyline and trying to deal with the deaths that they dealt with, and these strange creatures pop up, and It's super weird. Like I said, if you like Dungeons and Dragons and that style of fantasy, The Realm is a book you need to read because it's that in the modern world put together. Plus, this cover is one of my favorite covers in a long time.
That is really cool. That giant, like, I'm so sold by giant swords. Like, that's all you gotta do is put a giant sword on a cover, like someone wielding a giant sword, and I'll read it. Like, I'm gonna subscribe to that right now on Comixology. As we speak.
And I got Sonic the Hedgehog #6. So we've been spending all this time trying to convince the reader that the events that are happening are not because of Dr. Robotnik. And it goes as far as to they find Dr. Robotnik, but he's calling himself the Tinkerer, and he's lost all his memories and all this stuff. And so Sonic and gang are convinced that it's not him. And then there's this whole showdown with Shadow the Hedgehog, and it's just them introducing all the characters again. And then they finish the book by saying they're leaving the town that the Tinker's in. And who do we find out is behind all the attacks with the robots? It's Dr. Robotnik, but it's not that Dr. Robotnik. So there's 2 Dr. Robotniks now.
Oh, no.
It's fantastic. Yeah,
Trouble.
Fun all ages stuff. If you like Sonic the Hedgehog, check it out. The Terrifics #5. Basic premise of this one is there's an entire town of metamorphos, and they're attacking. So the Terrifics have to go and figure it out. And Metamorpho is taken away to this other dimension, and the Terrifics have to follow them there because if they get too far away from each other, they die.
Yeah, they have to stay next to each other.
And yeah, Terrific's been a lot of fun. And then my final kind of sad but awesome is Killer Be Killed #20. It's the last issue.
Oh, man.
And I don't want to spoil it because he has a very satisfying ending. And he just weaves in and out. And I love how the story is told through the perspective of Dylan, but it's really Brubaker talking to you because at points, like, he's just saying, like, I know that it's stupid that the narrator would be, this would happen to him in the story, but guess what? It happened.
Yeah.
Like, just talking in that manner, so it was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
And it ends in a way which they can continue it, but the story's also wrapped up, so really love that book. And that's all I got. Mike,
Awesome.
Where can everybody find you on the internets?
They can find me at Fortress Ricker on Twitter if they so kindly would like to follow. Where can they find you?
You can find me at Fortress Chris.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
You can find the show at FCN_official on Twitter or at FortressComicNews.com. And remember, if you're watching this on YouTube, you should know the drill by now. Thumb up the video, comment below, and subscribe to the channel. And anyone listening to this on iTunes, please give us a review on iTunes. The more reviews we get, the more people the show gets out to. Algorithms and whatnot do all that stuff. And yeah, and make sure to check out the Super Friends podcast that I was on. Those guys are really cool, and you should show them some support as well. And that's all I got for you. So everybody, thanks for listening.
Thanks, everybody.